little old me. Life's an everyday adventure. That's my philosophy. There are certain days I get really excited about, and today is one of them. It is our annual family picnic day with Uncle Marcus and my grandmother. The picnic is on a different day each year, depending on when Uncle Marcus is in town. This year, Uncle Marcus sent us a postcard telling us he would arrive today for the picnic. Yahoo! The annual family picnic is no ordinary picnic. This is a picnic where we each prepare and share our favorite food of the year, which usually makes it my favorite meal of the year, too. My grandmother said she would be making the most fabulous homemade spinach spaghetti with olive oil and tomatoes. I couldn't wait to try it. Even though I had my own food to prepare, I thought it would be fun to make pasta from scratch with my grandmother, so I asked if I could help. My toes began to tingle and wiggle in my moccasins as I watched my grandmother try to mix the flour and eggs. Flour was flying, but my grandmother stayed focused. I was just about to help when I noticed something. I look exactly like my grandmother when I concentrate on something. I ran to the hall mirror to see if I was right. Yes, it's true! I watched my face as I thought about doing something difficult, and my tongue did the exact same thing my grandmother's did. Will I look like my grandmother when I'm older? I ran back to help make the pasta and watched my grandmother very carefully. I wanted to see what else I'd do like her. Just then, my mother flew into the kitchen with tons of groceries. Unfortunately, my grandmother's large foot got in the way, and my mother went flying too. Now the groceries were on the floor, and so was my mother. We all looked at each other, then burst into laughter. I had never noticed before, but my mother and I have the exact same laugh. When I grow up, will I still laugh like my mother? Things were getting interesting. My mother decided to make something I had never tried before. She said it was a Spanish dish, tortillas de papas. It is an omelet that looks like a pie with potatoes and onion in it. I am not sure why, but I love almost anything that has onions in it. It was now time for me to get down to business and make my favorite food of the year. I had tons of ideas because I loved tons of things I had eaten this year. The one I chose was something I could make myself. Peanut butter and cucumber sandwiches. I even cut the crusts off to make them extra fancy. My grandmother was kneading her pasta dough, my mother was whipping her eggs, and I was peeling the cucumbers. This day was already terrific. But where was my father, and what was he going to make? I found him in his thinking room with his head in a book. Actually, he was in between about 20 different books. All of them were my mother's cookbooks. He looked up and said,
"Hello, Miss Molly. Do you know where the recipe is for your mother's chicken meatballs? It is my favorite thing to eat, and I thought I would surprise her with one of her own recipes."
Luckily, I did know where the recipe was. It is a special recipe that is on a very old piece of paper in a drawer in the kitchen. It was my great-great-grandmother's recipe. I ran to get it. On the way there and back, I realized that I run just like my father. How is that possible? I handed the recipe to him, then asked if he would come outside with me for a minute to do a quick experiment. I asked him to run back and forth between two trees. I couldn't believe it. Turns out that we both raise our right eyebrow when we do sporty things. Wow! I am more like my family than I realized. Uncle Marcus arrived just in time. We were all packed up and ready to go. We hopped in the car and drove straight to the park. When we arrived, Uncle Marcus pulled out 5 of the most beautiful wooden walking sticks. They were gifts from his recent trip in the mountains of Switzerland. We were all so excited about the walking sticks that we decided to take a walk. We walked and chatted and walked and chatted. We walked so much it was almost dark, and we hadn't even had our picnic yet. Uncle Marcus had an idea. As he shared his new plan, I noticed he scratched his head. Amazing! When I get ideas, I do the same thing. I asked Uncle Marcus if he always did that when he was developing ideas, and he said he did. I giggled as I imagined little Uncle Marcus at my age. Uncle Marcus's idea was to have the picnic in our backyard by the light of candles and stars. So that is exactly what we did. We ate our feast and sang songs and told stories. Then Uncle Marcus broke out his favorite food of the year, Swiss chocolate. It was the perfect treat. We lay back and looked up at the stars. As I lay there, I couldn't stop giggling. I kept imagining little me looking like all of my family members when I grow up. It is not easy to imagine what you'll look like when you're older, but there's a good chance you might look a lot more like the other people in your family. Molly Moccasins, everyday adventurer.